Hello, and welcome back for another breakdown of election 2020 Jeffco style. Today we're going to talk about Colorado House of Representatives and the great Jeffco Democratic candidates that we have here in election 2020. We have HD1, HD22, 23, 24, 25, I don't know what happened to 26, 27, 28, and 29. These are our Jeffco representatives, and they've been doing a fantastic job. In election 2020, we have Lindsay Dougherty stepping up to keep HD29 in the blue column, to follow in the footsteps, yes, of Tracy Kraft Tharp and all the good work she's done, but also to lead with her own voice, to bring her ideas and fresh perspectives to the table, to the people of the House of Representatives. And in HD22, Mary Parker bringing that blue wave to the shores of the Chatfield Reservoir. We're turning Jeffco bluer and bluer. And in addition, we're going to send all of our other representatives back to the House of Representatives. Brianna Titone, Monica Duran, Lisa Cutter, Susan Longtine, Kerry Tipper, and Chris Kennedy. They're all going in. It is a blue tsunami. Forget waves, tsunami time. Mary Parker, she's an engineer, a small business owner, a court-appointed special advocate, the spouse of a retired police officer, a mother, a grandmother. She's got endorsements. I didn't know what endorsements were until I saw the list of endorsements Mary Parker has. I heard recently that when doors see Mary Parker coming, the door bells, the door knockers, the doors themselves, they cringe. Because there is no one in South Jeffco who has knocked on more doors than Mary Parker. And this is the year Mary Parker is bringing 22 blue. Lindsay Dougherty. What can I say? Colorado native. Lawyer. Worked in Washington. Clerked in the Obama administration. Clerked for Senator Harkin. Coming back home. She's a lawyer here, a family lawyer, a juvenile lawyer. She's going to be the next representative for HD29. Monica Duran. Endorsements? Did I say endorsements? Joe Biden has endorsed Monica Duran. Bernie Sanders has endorsed Monica Duran. In the 2020 session, Monica Duran introduced two domestic violence bills, a bill to protect and further the protection of foster children, regulations for breeders of cats and dogs, and for the safe storage of firearms. She's been endorsed by the unions. She's been endorsed by her fellow representatives, senators, and other politicians. And recently, you probably heard there's some ugliness at one of her rallies. Monica was there representing her voice, her opportunity to speak to her constituencies, and people with Confederate flags and white supremacist paraphernalia honked and waved their Confederate and American flags, trying to silence a voice. And they picked the wrong one. Monica's voice will never be silenced. Monica has represented HD24, and she will continue to represent HD24. Brianna Titone, endorsed by the mayor, Pete Buttigieg, endorsed by the vice president, future president of the United States, Joe Biden, a leader protecting LGBTQI, making sure that those crimes are punished as hate crimes. Brianna Titone sponsoring the price gouging ban. People selling toilet paper in the very parking lot of the stores that they bought it in, marking up, jacking up those prices. That's not who we are as Americans. That's not who we are as Coloradans or Jefferson County residents. We should be handing out toilet paper to people who couldn't get it from the store shelves, handing out bleach wipes, sanitizers. That's who we are. And Brianna Titone stood up. She sponsored legislation to ban those gouging practices. Chris Kennedy. I don't even know what to say about Chris Kennedy, HD23. Because Chris Kennedy doesn't do it just for himself. He does it for everybody else as well. His fingerprints are on almost every piece of legislation going through the House of Representatives. He's the assistant majority leader. He's been supporting the LGBTQI community since he was in 7th grade. He supports women's rights, honors the 100th anniversary of the women's suffrage, but doesn't take anything for granted. He knows that women's rights are under threat. with some of the recent judicial nominations and some of the actions by the White House. But the type of guy that Chris is when he holds a town hall, most recently to discuss ballot measures with Senator Danielson and Senator Pedersen. Chris Kennedy brings two opposing voices in to debate out different perspectives on the ballot measures. Yes, he has his opinions, but he wants to make sure his constituencies, the people of Colorado, hear all of the options, all of the perspectives, and then get to make their own decisions. That's who Chris Kennedy is. Lisa Cutter. What can I say? Lisa Cutter is the first Democrat to ever represent HD25. It's about all you need to know. Although, I might even go a little further and say that the representative who preceded Lisa Cutter might have even dropped out because he heard those footsteps behind him. He heard Lisa Cutter coming. Lisa Cutter won with 52.7% of the vote in a district that had never voted for a Democrat. Why? Well, I would say it's because Lisa Cutter is accessible. She practices civil discourse. She listens even when she might disagree. She encourages us all to do the same thing. She supports mental health, especially for the youth, as well as education. She's always trying to bring people together to solve problems. Speaking of solving problems and bringing people together, her bill, HB 20, that's the type of person she is. She gets people behind a bill. I might also give a shout out to our own Jeffco Senator Rachel Zenzinger as well, who is one of the other sponsors, as well as Jeffco Senator Tammy Story. 3 of the 4 sponsors on this food pantry assistance bill, all from Jeffco. Jeffco proud, Jeffco blue. Carrie Tipper has worked as an assistant attorney general. She's worked in private practice as an attorney, helping immigrants, helping survivors of domestic violence. She's fought to protect us, the consumers. She's advocated for reform to the criminal justice system. She's prosecuted discrimination cases. And she won her first race, 58.7%, representing parts of Lakewood and Littleton. Carrie Tipper's the real deal. She's going back for her sophomore term as a representative, representing us, Jeffco, in the state House of Representatives. Thank you, Carrie. Susan Longteen. I could go on and on of all of the things that she has done in her 3 terms as a legislator, representing HD1. In fact, I gotta brag about her stats. She won her first race, approximately 55% of the vote. She wins her second race with 61% and her third race with 64%. Those are stats nobody can argue with. And you know why she has those stats? Because she delivers. And one of the most important messages that she has delivered recently is when she stood up for sexual harassment right there in our Golden Dome. And she stood up to a colleague, a senator from Alamosa, I believe, and said he sexually harassed her. Too often, people who are the victims of sexual harassment of any kind, feel that they're going to be put in a situation of double victimization. Too often, people don't understand they need to stand up and speak out to encourage not just the perpetrators to reform, to apologize, to be held accountable, but also so that other victims feel encouraged to step up and advocate for themselves as well. Thank you, Susan. These are our House candidates. Susan, Mary, Chris, Monica, Lisa, Brianna, Kerry, and Lindsay. We're going forward, blue wave, blue tsunami, because we have so much depth here in Jeffco. I couldn't imagine the State House without our delegation. Susan, Chair of Health and Insurance on the powerful Legislative Council, 2 other committees. She's on 4 committees. Chris Kennedy, Assistant Majority Leader, Chair of State Veterans and Military Affairs. Monica Duran, Business Affairs, Labor, Veterans and Military Affairs, and that powerful Legislative Council. Lisa Cutter, the Education Committee, the Public Health and Human Services Committee. Brianna Titone, Health Insurance Committee, Rural Affairs Committee, Agricultural Committee, Joint Technology Committee. And by the way, if I didn't mention it before, Brianna's a geologist. You don't get enough geologists, do you? And Kerry Tipper, Health and Insurance Committee and Judiciary Committee, where she belongs as a former Assistant Attorney General. This is a great field of candidates that we have. It's going to get even better when we seat Lindsay Dougherty and Mary Parker next to these great veteran leaders that we have in the State House. I don't even know what else to say. Jefferson County rocks, and Jefferson County is leading the House of Representatives to represent the people of Colorado. Thank you.